Okay, thank you. All right, our next speaker is Sean Salstrom. He's an associate professor of glass at RISD. He has a background in glass blowing and art making. He is new to astronomy. He came to it through the material of glass and learning to grind his own mirrors. To date, he's completed a 6-inch f8 and a 12-inch f5 Newtonian reflector. He's almost finished with a 10-inch f3.7 Cassegrain. That's pretty good. You can find more on his faculty bio at RISD if that is useful. He's going to discuss a recent trip he took to the Richard F. Caris Mirror Lab at the University of Arizona, where they are casting the largest pieces of glass ever made for the Giant Magellan Telescope. He's organized some of this info on his website blog. And if you have any questions at the end, be sure to ask him about it. But I'll get this going and then you can start. They don't need to see me.
And but while we're getting this set up, I'm gonna have my assistant hand out an M&M to each person. Hold on to it. Don't eat it yet. We'll all eat it in unison, but it is connected directly to the talk. So if everyone can take one M&M.
Only one?
And you can take more than one after everyone's got at least one. So.
All right.
And I'm gonna ask if I can sit at the computer, because there's a couple of manual things I'll have to do. Yep, okay. So why don't we try and pass those M&Ms out pretty quickly? And as Steve said, I'm very new to astronomy and very new to, and I came to it through my love of glass. I'm a glass maker. I've been a glass maker for the last 27 years. And for me, it was really interesting to realize that our ability to manipulate glass has advanced serendipitously with our ability to understand the cosmos, and the two of them go hand in hand. So as we got better at being able to manipulate glass, we got more information from the universe. And so to me, that became really interesting. And I started making my first telescopes. First, I was getting mentored under Ed Turco before he passed away. And then Bob Horton and Dick Parker kind of took me on and have been guiding me since. And so on the left is my 6-inch f8, and on the right is my 12.5-inch f5.
Lights.
Yep, ready for the lights. So I recently learned about the Giant Magellan Telescope. It's a 25.4 meter reflector, but the 25.4 meters are made up by 7 8.4 meter segments. And from a glassmaking perspective, this is extremely interesting. That scale is kind of unfathomable to somebody who makes art glass, to understand that you can actually control glass and cast it at this scale. So to give you some context, each mirror is 8.4 meters in diameter, but each mirror is 20 tons of glass. It's 40,000 pounds plus of glass that has to be cast, cooled, de-stressed, and controlled without blowing out a mold. And so they're doing this at the University of Arizona at the Richard F. Caris Mirror Lab. And Richard F. Caris is this man, and this is where we take our M&Ms. And I want everyone, if they can, look at their M&Ms, both sides, look at them closely. If you're not familiar with M&Ms, get to know it. If you are familiar, you probably know the one connection that the M&Ms have to the Giant Magellan Telescope and all of the mirrors at the Mirror Lab is that Richard F. Caris is an engineer who developed the pressure sensor to put the M's on the M&Ms. Before they melt in your hand, although they're not supposed to, you can eat it. So now that we've eaten an M&M, we all have a direct connection to the Mirror Lab. He realized that a bunch of his pressure sensors were being bought up by the astronomy department at the University of Arizona, and he went down there to find out what they were using them for. And at that time, they were just starting to set up the Mirror Lab, and it's through the Stewart Observatory. And I took this picture from the backside because it's more picturesque. The front side is a little more corporate. But the Stewart Observatory, as you can see, was established in 1918 with the generous support of Livia Stewart. And when you go to take a tour of the Mirror Lab, you start at the Stewart Observatory, and they give you a little bit of a slide talk. So this person on the bottom left is Richard Angel. He's the one who's developed this process for making these mirrors, and it's a novel process. They're not only are they hollow, they're honeycomb shaped. The honeycomb, oh, did this cut out? The honeycomb.
No, it's fine.
Okay, the honeycomb. What? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, it's flashing.
Might be the battery.
Can people hear me if I talk, or is it a Zoom thing?
It's probably.
So what's novel about this this process is that the honeycomb eliminates 80%. It's basically 80% hollow. That means that you can use quite a bit less glass than you would have to, but also in the process of melting the glass, the furnace is rotated and spun. That creates the parabola naturally, and you can see from the bottom of this. I'm going to point over here. You can see it's from this diagram of this mirror on these 8.4 diameter mirrors. If you didn't spin it and make a parabola, oh great.
There, we got this too.
Oh, beautiful. So if you didn't spin it and make a parabola, you would have basically a flat giant disc. These are fast F1 mirrors, so you have to remove this much material. That much material is 28 tons of material, more than the amount of weight that the final mirror is. So that's the amount of material that you're not having to remove, you're also not having to use initially. And we'll get into why that's important in a second.
How deep is that Fujita?
I don't know I'm sorry about that. I don't know, but it is quite deep. This first one that he made here, this is a successful one, is a 1.8 meter. This was a proof of concept that showed that it worked. And that is currently at the Vatican Observatory on Mount Graham. And it's being used on their telescope still. And they say that his name is Richard Angel, who developed this, and it's at the Vatican. So they say that this is the holiest of mirrors. And it doesn't have holes, but it is hollow. So again, the current mirrors that I went to visit are the ones being cast currently for the Giant Magellan Telescope. This is a rendering. They now have all 7 mirrors cast. 3 of them are completely finished being figured. And when I went there, they were working on number 5 and number 7. 6 was nowhere to be seen. One of the other mirrors that they made, one of the other many mirrors that the Mirror Lab has made, is the 8.4 meter diameter dual parabola. It's got 2 different parabolas in a single mirror for the Vera Rubin telescope. And again, I would love to talk about all of these, but we only have time to talk about the Mirror Lab, so I won't get into detail about all of these. But this is a really phenomenal mirror that everyone was telling the Mirror Lab folks it couldn't be done to get 2 parabolas in a single mirror. So that's really fascinating. They're really doing cutting edge glass work there. And that's a little they have a little model of what the 2 parabolas look like, but it's also one of the biggest, maybe it is the largest camera that's being used for astronomy, is also in that telescope. And then one thing they let you know that all around Tucson, this is something I took advantage of while I was there, and anybody else who goes should do the same. Within an hour's drive in any direction, there's an enormous amount of astronomy to be partaken in, and you can visit many observatories. There's Kidd Peak National Observatory, there's Mount Graham. Mount Graham has a bunch of observatories on it, including the Vatican Observatory. I couldn't get up there in early May because there was these ground squirrels that were mating, and they wouldn't let you bother that. So until late May, you gotta let the ground squirrels do their work. And then you can go up and then the astronomers are doing theirs. The Mirror Lab is located right on the edge of the eastern edge of the football stadium of the University of Arizona. It's built right into it, and that wasn't by mistake. It was a piece of useful real estate on the university, but what they did is they were able to tie into the load-bearing wall of the stadium and tie into their enormous power load that they need. When this furnace is running to melt these giant mirrors, it's 1 million watts of energy that they're using. They take 500,000 pre-existing watts out of the stadium infrastructure, so they didn't even have to make any effort to get that energy. And then they have 2 other 500,000 watt generators, one to use in conjunction with the stadium, and one as a backup in case the power goes down while they're firing. And one thing I just wanted to point out here, very briefly, is yep, there it is. Right there, that little man you saw walking into the door, he's Roger Angel. He's now in his late 70s, I believe, or early 80s. And I didn't realize that was him until after the tour, and then they told me he walked in front of me. So I found that video that I took. I realized he's an emeritus professor now, but he still shows up to the Mirror Lab quite a bit. When you first walk into the Mirror Lab, when I first walked in, this view on the left was my first view, and you see the enormity of the mirror looking through some safety glass, a window. Then they take you into the lab, and you can get a really, really nice view, and you can just see the scale of these single mirrors. Remember, these are only 1/7 of the total reflecting surface of this very large telescope that's going to be made. So that's the backside of that mirror, and over here is the very base of this 100-foot tall testing tower where they do all the optical testing for the mirrors. And then, interestingly, so this is segment number 5. This segment on the back is segment number 7, where they're grinding the back, that flat. That one just most recently came out of the kiln. They're grinding that flat before they put infrastructure on it to flip it over. The testing tower is a really novel testing tower, and it does 4 types of testing. It does full aperture, interferometric testing. It does a slope test. It does a scanning pentaprism test and a laser tracking plus. And you can go on their website and learn all about that. But they have they're testing every possible way that they can test for perfection of these surfaces. I just want to point out, when you zoom in his hand is just a little Dremel tool. So he's on this massive surface of glass, grinding that a little bit. How many people here have ground their own mirrors before? So you can imagine getting so minute detail about that little area. And everything about the Mirror Lab is gigantic. So it's really hard to get a sense of the scale, but this is the floor, the rotating turntable floor of the oven. All of these little zigzags here are the electrical elements in the floor. Of course, the whole walls get that. Just above that to the right, they store the lid. And this space is kind of a really adaptable space. These are the massive steel bands that wrap around there. They're just enormous. For scale, that's a 6-foot ladder right there, 6-foot step ladder. And then, interestingly, this crane, if you zoom in, it's a 45-ton crane. So you can get an idea of the weights that they're dealing with. The glass, from a glassmaker's perspective, this is where the real juice is for me. This glass is being made specifically, exclusively for the Mirror Lab by Ohara Glass in Japan. They get these artisans to hand make the ceramic crucibles. Each crucible holds 1 ton of glass. 1 ton of glass is $1 million. 1 mirror takes 20 tons of glass. Each mirror takes 53 hours to melt, 13 days to anneal. I mean, each ton. So if you want 20 tons of glass made by them, it takes 2 years just to get the glass for them to produce before they break it and ship it off. So you can imagine the amount of planning that goes into make 7 mirrors, and actually they're making 8. They're making an extra mirror as a backup, which they're getting ready to cast now. These are just some images from their displays showing how the mold is built with the ceramic fiberboard. That's their first 8.4 meter diameter that they made. And I believe that was for the large binocular telescope, also on Mount Graham. And that's an image of them driving it up the mountain. The size, the scale is just enormous. And when they get these ones to go to Chile, they have to drive it through the desert to the port of Los Angeles. The mirror in its crate gets welded onto the deck of a cargo ship. And they say that they do that so that it doesn't come off the cargo ship. And if the cargo ship sinks, they can actually find it through locating the ship and go down and get it back up easier than they would be able to locate the mirror itself. Then it gets to Chile, they break the welds, they put it on a truck, and they drive it up the mountain. And so far, 3 of them are already there. And this is the video. This is where I have to switch because the video didn't transfer through the email. So I'm going to switch real quick to the internet and show you that. And this is the last slide I'll share. Hey, Steve, do you know what's going on with this?
Yeah, you gotta share the other one.
What's that?
Let me see.
Yep. I had the window open.
This is.
Oh, there it is. Yep. And you just gotta, yep, there you go. Yep. And let me just see this real quick. I'll just change to settings. I'm gonna play it at 1.5 just so we don't run out of time.
This movie will take you through the spin casting of an 8.4 meter honeycomb mirror. This mirror is one of the 7 segments of the 25 meter primary mirror for the Giant Magellan Telescope. Spin casting starts with building a mold that's the negative of the honeycomb structure. After the mold is built, the glass is loaded onto it, the mold is enclosed in an electric furnace, and the glass is melted. While the glass is molten, the mold spins to give the top of the mirror the parabolic curvature that we want. The first part of the movie is a sequence of photos, taken 1 per day, during the mold construction and casting of GMT segment 2. The mold includes a hard tub made out of silicon carbide cement. We build it on the turntable of a spinning furnace. We first lay down the floor of the tub, then add the walls. It's built like a barrel with staves that are wrapped with steel bands to hold it together. These materials will change their dimensions when they go through the heating cycle. So we install the furnace in pieces and do a preheat to stabilize the dimensions. We do a test spin of the furnace at the same time. Next, we line the tub with ceramic fiber and install 1,700 hexagonal boxes of the same ceramic fiber. When the glass melts around the boxes, it will create the cavities in the honeycomb. The ceramic fiber is much softer than the glass and doesn't have any chemical interaction with the glass, so it's easy to remove the ceramic fiber after the mirror is cast. Again, we heat the mold in order to stabilize the dimensions before adding glass. The glass is O'Hara E6 borosilicate, delivered to us as irregular blocks. Each block was broken out of a larger piece, so the surfaces are pristine and the blocks melt together without any trace of the original blocks. When the glass loading is complete, we reinstall the furnace and raise the temperature to about 1200 degrees C, spinning the furnace as the glass starts to melt. Now we'll change to a view from one of the cameras mounted in the ceiling of the furnace, so we can watch the glass melt. It reaches a thickness like cooled honey, and takes a few hours to flow down the 12mm gaps between the hexagonal boxes. As the glass melts, it becomes transparent, and you can see the hexagonal boxes. You can also see some bubbles of trapped air rising to the top and bursting. Here's a close-up view of the side of the mold from a different camera. The side is marked with the height in inches above the tops of the boxes. We want to finish with a glass thickness of about 2 inches, and that's where the glass surface stabilizes after it fills the mold. Once the liquid glass is stabilized, we cool it quickly to solidify, then cool it slowly down to room temperature. Most of the cooling is the process known as annealing, when the atoms in the glass get locked into place forever. Temperature variations need to be very small during annealing, and we achieve that by cooling at a rate of 3 degrees C per day. The whole cooling process takes 3 months. At the end of that time, we can open the lid, remove the rest of the furnace, remove the silicon carbide tub wall, and we're left with a cast honeycomb mirror. It still has the ceramic fiber trapped inside, and it's still attached to the silicon carbide floor tiles. These will be removed in the next step. In order to remove the mold material, we need to lift the mirror off the turntable and move it into a turning fixture. We use a steel lifting fixture bonded to the top of the mirror with compliant adhesive and with the load distributed to minimize stress on the glass. Now we'll switch to a different view. It's actually a different mirror, GMT segment 3, but the process is the same. We'll lift the mirror and move it to the turning fixture. We use the turning fixture to raise the mirror into a vertical plane, giving access to the bottom surface. This transfer takes about a day, so we'll speed it up. Now we'll install the mirror in the turning fixture and lift it up. We'll bring in an enclosure to protect the mirror and contain the mold materials as they're removed. The enclosure holds an elevator platform, so the technicians will have access to all of the rear surface. They first remove the silicon carbide floor of the tub, then they'll wash the trapped ceramic fiber out of the mirror with high-pressure water. This completes the casting process. We have a lightweighted honeycomb mirror that is 80% hollow.
And then they go on and they figure for about the next 3 years. It takes about 3 years to finish the polishing and
It's
figuring.
almost like an eraser. It went from being,
That's the best part. And then if you just open this more time, I have one last slide just of a reference. Great, and then this is just a list of from their slide talk, they end with this as websites for additional information, but just going to the Caris Mirror Lab, you can get a whole bunch of amazing information. And there, it's listed now as one of TripAdvisor's top tours in the country. So it costs, I think, $25 to do that, but you have to arrange it ahead of time because it's pretty popular. Any questions?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
By any chance, have you met the very interesting glass artist up in Vermont? And I'm not sure I know how to pronounce his last name perfectly, but Robert Robert Dugrenier.
No, I don't know. No.
Well, he's quite interesting. I met him for the first time about a week ago, and he is a very well-known glass artist. He did some design work related to the Statue of Liberty replacement flame thing.
Yeah.
But he's become well known among members of the Antique Telescope Society and the members of Stalfane Observatory up there in Vermont, because he's keen on astronomy too. And to make a story short, he has acquired an 8.5-inch refractor made by Cook in England. About 1864. And I'm keen on history of telescopes. This is one of the most intricate antique refractors I've ever seen in my life. And he's got it in an observatory dome now up there. And he's just a very interesting combination of glass artist who is quite keen on astronomy and history of telescopes.
Oh, that's great. I'll have to get his name.
Yeah, you might want to check this guy out.
That sounds
He's
great.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Our next speaker is John Kocur. He's been a member since 2005. He is an amateur astronomer with interests in art, science, astronomy, photography, and astrophotography. He's designed and built an 8-inch Newtonian. He builds telescope accessories and enjoys participating in outreach events for skyscrapers and attending major star parties in New England. For his topic tonight, he's going to talk about refurbishing a donated 8-inch aperture Dobsonian telescope that the club got recently. He's going to explain the cleaning, collimation, and upgrades to the scope. John, hey, you want me to?
Well, that's tough to follow up on that last story. For scale, that's a great blue whale. This is a flea. All right. So, anyways, So Mike, Corvese, he said about a month ago, he said, John, there's a scope that just got donated, and I looked out back here and I go, wow. This is something to be donated. This is a very nice scope, and it was just in disrepair. It was been neglected, and it was really dirty and out of collimation. And I said, I want to get this thing up and running so that club members can enjoy it and the public can enjoy it. So I've been using this with Saturday nights, observing nights over here. As a matter of fact, Jim and I were looking through it just a couple weeks ago. We had a spectacular view of the moon. I'll show it to you in a minute. Well, at the end of this talk. So anyways, moving on here, I'm going to explain everything I did to this. So there's the beginning. There's a dirty mirror, pretty nasty, out of collimation. That's looking right down the tube of the focuser. What I did was I just put a little piece of tape on the end of it when I took the cell out so that it wouldn't lose the alignment, because if you put it in wrong, then you have the clips, you'll have extra clips visible that will cause more diffraction. We want one of the clips to be hidden behind the focuser, so I marked it. The fan over here is about 1 inch inside the tube, which brings the mirror about 1 inch up. So the problem that we have is that it won't reach focus with a 17 millimeter eyepiece or greater without an extension tube. So that's one little problem that this scope has, but it's overcome by that tube. So taking it out, it was dirty. It looks really fuzzy right there. So that's just it's just really, really dirty. So then I got all my cleaning supplies ready to go. I got instructions here on how to do it. I print these out myself. This is my step-by-step instructions that I got off the internet, and I kind of modified them. And you got to have, this is the most important part right here. You got to have the astronomy towel and magnifying glasses, sterile cotton balls, distilled water, and then squirt bottles and isopropyl alcohol and Dawn. Okay. All right, so first soak, 1 hour, warm tap water. Bubbles start to form. That's just dissolved gases coming out of suspension. 55-pound PSI, 55 pounds per square inch PSI coming out of the tap. The bubbles start to form, and that's after 1 hour. Then the next step is to soak it in Dawn with distilled water. Okay. So there's two soaks.
How much Dawn?
Just a couple of drops, 2-3 drops. I just, liberal drops, nothing tiny, and you just mix it up and don't put your fingers in it. You don't want any oil from your skin. All right. So after I took it out, there was a huge amount of haze still left on it. 50% of the haze was gone. And then I did 3 more rinses and I go, this is not working. So I took it out completely. I put some distilled water on there, and I put a cotton swab with alcohol on it, and I got that effect. It looks like hand sanitizer, and I didn't know what was going on. I thought that the water was being repelled by the alcohol because the alcohol has great surface tension. It just wants to push all of the water away. But what happens is that alcohol combines with water. All right. So water and alcohol combined by hydrophilic action form intermolecular hydrogen bond. Isopropyl alcohol, isopropanol, is considered amphilic, having water-loving and oil-loving properties. It attracts water, hydrophilic, and dissolves oil, hydrophobic. It features a polar head that mixes with water and a non-polar tail. That's tail. This would be the head. This is neutral carbon. This would be negative, and this would be negative over here, positive there. The hydrogens are positive. So because of this dual nature, isopropyl alcohol acts as a bridge. It attaches to the non-polar oil on this side, okay? While its polar negative OHN allows the entire mixture to be easily rinsed away with water. Water molecules fit in between the alcohol molecules in the reaction. The bond creates a small amount of heat, and I measured it. It releases energy when that bond is created, and the Marangoni effect, the surface tension motion, when you have that swirling effect, that's what's happening. It's the surface tension. It's not the Brownian effect, it's the surface tension. Alcohol is totally safe for cleaning optics. 91% concentration is preferred. Distilled water is essential for cleaning mirrors because it won't leave mineral deposits and prevents water droplet rings from forming. So I couldn't find a molecule that had the water attaching to it, but this shows how it attaches to ethyl alcohol. So the plus and the minus opposites attract. Here's the minus, here's the plus. And so that water molecule gets attached right up here, just like that. And this is ethyl alcohol. So there's only 2 carbons instead of 3. And ethyl alcohol is in gasoline. And this is what happens when you leave gas sitting around for a month or so. It picks up water from the atmosphere, and then it separates out from the gasoline and sinks to the bottom of your gas tank. It causes corrosion, causes all kinds of problems. So that's when you put stable in, it takes this water and keeps it in the gasoline and keeps it from basically separating out. So that's how that works. That's what was happening. And I thought that was pretty fascinating. I was really surprised. And it took me a while to find all of this information on the internet. I just didn't just go onto one Google and just get AI and give me this answer. I did all of this. So I had to do the research on it because I wanted to understand what was going on. It's not going. Yeah, can you just move it? This is not working.
You're pushing the right button?
I'm pushing the right side. All right, so I was trying to get some stubborn stains off. So you're just using very, very light. You're not using any pressure, just using the weight of the cotton ball, and that's got alcohol on it. And I'm using rubber gloves to keep my skin oil from my skin to get contaminating it. All right, so now I'm using a hair dryer on cold just to blow the droplets away. I have it angled at a 45-degree angle here. And now I'm picking off these drops that were stubborn. They didn't want to blow off. So you just touch the droplet, and by certain that capillary action, it sucks it right off of the mirror. And clean mirror, crystal clear, spotless. And I noticed that there was a chip at the bottom right here. I hid it behind one of the clips because that was a defect that I didn't do. But that is behind one of the clips now. So it it probably didn't cause any problems anyways, but they let it pass through. I would never have passed that at QC, but the elliptical was okay. It had just a few little specks of dust, and I just blew it off. But this plate right here gave me a heck of a problem. I can understand why the person that had it might have given up on this thing because I couldn't get it to collimate. I did initially get it to collimate, but it wouldn't hold collimation. It wasn't perfect. I wasn't happy with it, so I went back and found out that the back of this, see those dimples are pressed into that plate, and these screws don't align with those dimples. I thought that they would sit inside and put pressure on the back of the holder. But that holder, this holder right here is slightly domed. It's not perfectly flat. So when I was trying to collimate it, the laser beam was shining way off axis. It was nowhere near, and I couldn't get it back to the center. So I flipped it around, and that solved the problem. So this is what you want to see when you're doing a collimation. You want to see everything perfectly concentric. So your eye is going to be right there in the middle. You can see the donut right there. Secondary mirror is right here. This is the full primary mirror. There's the spider arms right there. This is the outside of the elliptical, but this one has a holder. So basically it comes out like this on the bottom. It doesn't have this like stalk right here. It's got you'll see the holder. So on this next picture, you'll see it, right here. So there's the holder, top and bottom right there. So this is the collimation I got with it. And you can actually see the phone, the lens of the camera phone right there. You see the lens. So it's I got it pretty good. I was happy with that. This is the focus or draw tube right here. So here's the 35 millimeter extension tube, and it has this nice thing. It's got compression rings in it, so it doesn't mar the eyepiece tubes. Very smooth focuser, it's super smooth. Oh, so here's what I'm talking about. If you stick your head out there and you don't know where that beam is, you'll get it right in the eye. So by putting your hand out, you can test initially before you get your head over it where that beam is before you start to do the collimation process. Looks like I'm getting a hole burnt in my hand right up. So when you're doing a collimation process, you got to make sure that this thing is pretty much parallel to the floor. If you drop that screwdriver down there, you're done. Okay. Coming back, that laser beam coming back, you're trying to get it in the center hole where the laser beam exits, comes out this way, then comes down the tube. So then it's bouncing back off the primary mirror and going back where it came from. So this has an anodized plate, and it's basically picking up all the scatter from the non-collimated part of the laser beam. So it has this like pretty starburst effect, but this collimator is very robust. It's very well made, but I didn't like the way the beam was. It was very elliptical. It wasn't like very pinpoint, so it wasn't circular. But that's what I was working with. So, and I had to collimate that. That was way out of collimation. So the person that had this was trying to collimate and didn't know how to collimate this thing. They're basically decollimating their scope. So I think they got really frustrated with it, unfortunately. That's why you come to Skyscraper, so that we can help you fix all this stuff, you know, for free too. All right. Here's mine. That one doesn't have a brightness control, and I like the target on mine, and so you can see the beam is a lot more circular. This is the one I use. So, and you can really see that aperture where the laser beam comes out of it. You're trying to get the beam to go back up into that that hole right there. Nice 2-speed focuser too, very, very smooth. And this is a lock knob, and this puts tension on the tube to allow for like the weight of the, if you have a heavy eyepiece, you can tighten that down, it won't slip. So that's collimation right there. Just getting it really close, working on it. Nice thing about this scope also, it has this azimuth bearing like scale here. So that's nice to have. Here it is, pretty much done, and got it on the deck, and I decided to do a few little accessories on it, accessorize it. Oh, on the back of this, if you want to see right here, these are the collimation screws, and these are the lockdown screws, those white ones. So you have these really loose first, and then you make your adjustments with the black ones. And then once you get it lined up, then you just start tweaking those white ones until everything stays put. I put a little red tail light on it. There's a battery. This is a battery pack for the fan, to run the fan to cool off the mirror. And I got this box that keeps it nice and dry because it was exposed to, you know, moisture and dew. I have a phone holder on here, and I'm going to show you the app that's used to, it's like a pointing celestial navigation system that's free. It has a correct image focuser, finder scope, and it's got a 6-degree field of view, and it's actually quite good. This has tension adjust for you know, like a counterweight. The more tension you put on it, the less it slips, and then you can balance it by loosening some screws inside there. I didn't get into it. I just left it like set at 0. So I guess if you slide it further one way or the other, it'll change the balance. But to change the amount of tension, you just loosen those or tighten those knobs on each side. So here's the cute little battery pack. I was looking for a box to put this thing in, and I couldn't find anything. I found a bunch online, and you have to buy 10 of them, and this happened $20. I go, I was in a dollar store, and I found this box. I go, whoa, I think I can use this. It's a soap dish holder. And it's so snug. I mean, it was super tight, it was pretty durable, it looked really nice. And I just gave it a shot, brought it home, put some foam in it, packed it in there, and drilled a little, with a Dremel tool, drilled a little hole on both parts of the case so that the wire would come out. And it is super. It's really nice. It's watertight. I use these 1.5 lithium ion rechargeable batteries, this Kocur brand. They're from Amazon. They're about $20 for 8, but they take 2,000 charges, and they're true 1.5 volts. So I was testing out at 12.3 volts, and you can run it for 24 hours before they start to die. And then this is a little bike flashlight, and I got a magnetic clip that you put on your refrigerator to hold notes, and I just stuck it on there with some sticky tape, and it's got a magnet on the back, and it works beautiful. So the lid to this, the cover, was flopping all over the place. He had painter's tape holding it down, keep it from falling off. So what I did was I put at intervals Velcro, like here, 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 all the way around. And on the back side of this, it's got these knobs, and they fit in between these grooves. So I had to make like a little registration mark so that people would know that you line it up in order for it to fit nice and tight without it slipping or binding. Because if you don't line it up, then you can't put it on. If you go over the Velcro with those knobs, you can see it later. And so what these little knobs on the back side of this plastic plate fit into these open spaces, and it works really good. It's nice and snug. They were using this as a handle. This is eyepiece holder, and the screws that were here were just regular wood screws, and they were totally stripped out because it's just plywood, and somebody picked it up and they pulled it right out. So what I did was I put in nice these stainless steel button head cap screws, and I got 1/4-20 metal inserts that go into the wood, and they're bonded into the wood with Type Bond 3. It's the strongest wood glue you can get that's waterproof. So here's the front end of it, and I was having a hard time trying to find stuff with how much time I got? Oh, I'm over 17. I'm almost done. Sorry, Steve. I was having a hard time trying to get my head to sight alongside to get a star lined up. It was hunting around in a 6-degree field of view, and I couldn't even get Vega. So I had to squeeze this red dot finder in between. So here's the phone holder setup for this Astro Hopper star finding guide. And then you can see there's the 2-inch 35 millimeter extension tube. Won't come to focus unless that's a 24 millimeter. Here's the star test. I used the 9 millimeter Nagler, and that's in focus and out focus. There's the specs here. 1200 millimeter focal length, 9 millimeter Nagler. So you're looking at 133 power, but this is highly magnified, probably 5 times 133, zooming it up on the screen. It doesn't look anything like this in the eyepiece. It's a lot smaller. And you can see over here, I've got a lot of distortion, probably from seeing, and even here I've got almost like a double image, but right here it's pretty tight. So this is what you want: nice circular pattern and nice central, black space there. So here's the Astro Hopper. You can just go online and get it. I won't get into too much more because I'm running out of time. It's best used 24 millimeter eyepiece, and it's accurate within 0.1 to 0.5 degrees in the 24. So basically what you do is you just align on a star, you hit the line on Vega, and then you can just go anywhere you want. So I wanted to go to M13. It's saying go that way, go this way. The scope is here, go this way, up 16.7 degrees and right 3.8 degrees. Tells you what the magnitude is and the size of the object, 16 arc minutes. And it gives you AZ and alt down at the bottom. So it's a lot of information. It's very, very cool. And it's got red, it's lit up red so that it's good for your night vision. So here's an image of the moon taken with actually that one over there. I wasn't able to get any shots through this because you can't do astrophotography with it unless you're doing afocal photography. You've got to attach the phone to a bracket and project the image through the eyepiece. All right, so that's pretty good. And that's what Jim and I saw over here. That was 2 weeks ago. So here's a good idea of what you can see through the scope. This kind of looks blurry, but it's not. I mean, this is because of the shadow effect, and there's multiple rings in the crater from the impact. And there's actually some shadows in here. Okay, that's, and one more. There's Tycho, Flavius. Done.
And next, we're going to hear from long time member, Rick Lynch, one of the earliest skyscrapers in the room, probably. And he has always presented some really fun, fascinating talks. And tonight is a retrospective trip down nostalgia, memory lane. Well, whatever memory we can gather in here at this point. We're going down that lane. Rick, take it away. We're looking forward to this.
Thank you. This is nostalgia number one. This is from my time in 1967 up to 2000. Nostalgia two, which can be a future thing, was all the trips that we did to the Southwest and the West and a lot of other places. I took slides and pictures of everything from the moment I got my first 35 millimeter. And I've kind of backed off a little bit on taking pictures like that. Now, Jimi Hendrickson, certainly since 2000, and he's been on many of the trips, he documents everything. And when I say everything, he shoots hundreds. Okay, I shot dozens, but I have thousands of slides. And what I wanted to do, it's really hard to go through them and decide which go to use. But I always start my presentations with this slide. And originally, what I was going to do is I was going to do the presentation with a slide projector and slides, so really nostalgic. And I thought about the fact that we're going to be doing Zoom, and that's not going to work. And I wanted to scan some photos. So I'm going to start with where my career started. And I want to tell you, this has primarily to do with myself and Skyscraper members and things we've done together. I've gone all over the world and visited observatories in other countries, and I've done a lot of trips on my own. I didn't include any of that. This is where there's familiar faces of people I know. There's really no conventions in here, although we attended many conventions, because Skyscrapers has always been astronomy tourists. We go everywhere. But what you're going to see is stuff related to the observatory. There's not much in the way of astro assemblies. That can be a whole nother talk. But let's start by, this is, I want to tell you, the 1960s was a transition period. In the 1960s, the originally founding members, the real old timers, okay, there was a whole bunch of new, because of the space age, of young members who wanted to join and get involved. And they didn't want to they didn't want to part with the old ways. They wanted this to be their little niche. And there was always a little reluctance. They never brought in many junior members, not to say that they didn't bring in any, but there was no such thing as junior memberships. Well, that changed towards the end of the 60s when they started to let go. And at the end of the 60s, what ended up happening was they gave us active young members keys to this building so that we could camp out here and use it, but they didn't trust us with the main telescope. There was nothing else here other than the Alvin clock at the time. But this is a letter actually to Bill Penhollow, and it tells about these people were just, you can see my name. This is 1967. I actually came in September, and our parents would come and drop us off here on Friday night and pick us up on Sunday afternoon. We stay here the whole weekend. And we did that every single weekend. That way we stood out of trouble. We were nerds. You know, we'd sneak girls up here every now and then, but most of the time it's just a guy. And you can see some people here that the old timers, and when I say old timers, Steve Hubbard, Stephen Cathy, Bob Horton, Dan Lorraine, Bob Napier, and I'm happy to have John Briggs here, because you're gonna see John Briggs like you've never seen John Briggs. Also make comments on some of the places. I'll ask him to give some input on some of the places. But I got voted in as a junior member, and it was in 1967. It started actually in September. So from September 67 on, I've been a member of Skyscrapers. Like I said, the 60s were a transition period, but we'll start by going with Seagrave Observatory through the decades. This is how the observatory looked in the 1930s. You can see how wide open it is and everything else. There was nothing out there, okay? This is some pictures taken with Seagrave is in there and what have you. So this is the 1930s, right after the place was built. This is in the 1930s and 1940s. And you'll notice here, this is where we used to have our barbecue grills. This was the Crawford Observatory. Yes,
Wasn't the meeting hall built in 51? I thought.
51.
So, yeah.
I'm just showing this picture because I wanted to show this.
Well, I wanted you to be accurate.
Okay. Wait. I can say the 1930s to 1950s. This is the Crawford Dome. It was a 8-sided, 8-foot diameter thing, and Reverend Crawford had a 16-inch Cassegrain down in Saunderstown, Rhode Island, and this was the dome on his observatory. He wanted to move it up here, so we built this building, okay, and we found out that the 16-inch wouldn't fit in it. During the 38 hurricane, this blew apart, and this ended up being the black hole. After this was taken out, actually, when the 16-inch wouldn't fit in, this is the mount that we see here out in the Memorial Garden, and the 6-inch Crawford refractor, which we still have in storage in the observatory, was used in here. 38, they took the telescope down, the hurricane blew this down, and this ended up being the black hole where we threw all our garbage until we tore it all down. 1950s and 1960s, we had asphalt shingles on the dome, and it looked horrible, and it was also a fire hazard. Okay, so that's how it looked when I joined. Okay, and you could see the fairing was all starting to come apart. They had undertaken some painting to make it look better, but nothing really came
Still
of that.
windows in the basement.
Then we went to marine plywood, and the marine plywood that we put up there was extremely heavy, and it rotted pretty quick for marine plywood. And that was, this is 1974 when this was taken. So that was the next iteration of the dome. Okay, after that, we came up with Phylon, fiberglass Phylon that we put up, and this is taken in 1977. Steve will know, we put this up, Bob will know, we put this up, it was pure white, it looked gorgeous. And within 1 year, the ultraviolet light had turned it yellow, it looked like mustard. Okay, so that came down. Next came aluminum siding, vertical aluminum siding, and this was in the 1980s. This was on there for quite some time. The meeting hall was built in 1951. And it was made to hold 100 people. It was heated with an oil heater in place of where we have the propane now. It is a great story because when the oil heater was taken out, okay, one of the things, we had a big oil tank behind it. And one of the things that happened when we converted it to propane is we had about 75 gallons of heating oil in the tank, and we want to get rid of it. At the time, we had an outhouse, and the outhouse was kind of back where the Crawford was, a little bit farther, which was wooded there. And it only got moved once in the time that I was a member, but somebody came up with the idea, let's take the heating oil and let's pour it into the outhouse because it stinks terrible. Okay, so we poured all the 75 gallons into the thing, and there were fumes coming out of it and what have you. Ed Turco went in there one day, sat down, lit up his pipe, dropped the match between his legs. Kerosene won't ignite the liquid, but the fumes will.
Yeah.
Needless to say, the hair follicles at the lower part of his body disintegrated instantly. Okay, and that was kind of the end. We moved it over, we vented it out and everything else, and eventually we tore it down.
What year was that?
That was, let's see, 82, so I'm gonna say that was probably maybe around 79 or something. This is the inside of the meeting hall, okay? Projector hanging from the ceiling. This is looking to the front. Okay, you can see how it's changed significantly. The library was on this side, it's over here now. And we had a whole variety of chairs of all kinds that was donated to us. Wooden folding chairs, and we had these theater chairs, these red leather theater chairs, okay? And they were kind of unique because if you're here in the summertime when it was really humid, you always took a part of the chair with you home. And you're gonna see that in a later photograph. So these seats are all red theater chairs, and you sat there and you had to actually pull yourself away from it in moist weather. One of the most important things in the junior membership was there was an organization that we had founded, was Ed Turco, Al Puget, Tom Moran, Jim Nuzzo, myself. We formed an organization called the Rhode Island Meteor Research Organization. Back then, you could do a lot by observing meteors, plotting their orbits, looking for minor radiants, for you know, just everything related. Of course, when radio became more and more prevalent, and they could look at echoes from meteors, the whole meteor observing thing changed. We still go out, we still enjoy meteor observing, but back then we documented everything we saw. We mapped, we plotted it, and we entered the information in it. And eventually RIMRO kind of dissolved. It was headquartered here, and it became the Media Data Processing Center. Okay, this was when Dave Armitage got involved in the late 60s, early 70s into the 80s. Dave was he had big ideas, and he made them come true most of the time. But the Media Data Processing Center, what happened was every observation now, it had, whoops. Behind the observatory were the coffins. These are the only surviving photos I know. We could see the observatory here, the meeting hall. These were built in the late 1950s and early 1960s during the International Geophysical Year, when RIMRO was participating with Dr. Peter Millman in Canada with this International Geophysical Year and doing all these meteor observations. We were the #1 meteor observing organization in the world at that time. And these things were latched open, they would open up, you'd sit in there on a 45-degree angle. They were all pointing in you know, one direction, but they were on cinder blocks, and they could be put into the spokes of a compass so that you could see the whole sky. And we had a problem here because a lot of the young people that lived in the neighborhood, they brought their girlfriends, and there were a lot of conjugal visits inside of the But we sat in sleeping bags with hair dryers in the sleeping bag to keep us warm in the wintertime. And I think it was Jim Nuzzo's sleeping bag caught on fire once because it overheated up with the elements and everything else. But these were, we did our meteor observing. We actually went everywhere to meteor observe. When I took this picture, everybody says, well, just tell them it was a big fireball that we saw. Okay. But here's Al Hall, Jim Lean, Bill Saliga, okay, doing a little observing. So they give you some idea. This is in the 1970s. It's a picture I took of a Perseid, and I just wanted to add that to the thing. But these are the forms we used. We used the International Geophysical Media form. We made up our own form based on key punch cards, and these are the plot sheets from the American Meteor Society, where we plotted all the meteors we saw, and this was another form we used. Well, when Dave came along, he said, boy, we're accumulating all this stuff, we're sending it to Flower and Cook Observatory, to Dr. C.P. Olivier, and he's reducing all this, but we are in the computer age now, and we can key punch all this information in. Okay, well, for those of you who know what a key punch machine is, and knows back then, you get boxes of cards with 500 cards, they were blank, and you put them into a machine, and this was the machine that we sat at. Dave was the IT guy at Rhode Island College in the early days. And we sat at these key punch machines, and you loaded up this goddamn stack of cards here. For every single, we had our form here, and for every single, what do you call it? Owner of the media, we had to keep punching into a thing, and this is what a card looked like. Then those cards would stack up on this side, then you take those cards, put them into a reader, and then it could start to sort, kind of do like Excel does. I mean, pretty primitive stuff back then, but that was the state of technology. In the 1960s, 1970s decade, during this time, we started traveling around a lot, and this is the Meteor Data Processing Center RIMRO members. This is Dick Broda, Dennis Howarth,
Yep.
Jim Revere, myself,
No.
and Neil Paulus, okay?
God.
And you could see the condition of the observatory at the time. But we were doing a lot of observing.
What happened to all your hair?
It's gone. In 1969, Dave Dixon and myself, we took our first big giant trip. We went to Paxton, Massachusetts. In his push button dart, okay, no shift, no thing on a column, push buttons in the dashboard to go from drive to reverse and everything else. Goddamn thing never worked right, okay? But we made it to Paxton, okay, and Steve Hubbard is familiar. This is the Aldrich Astronomical Society. They had a roll-off roof observatory. They were hosting the Northeast region of the Astronomical League Convention. This is a dome of what they were going to have their observatory. And they, we went there for our first big astronomy convention. And there's two GQ guys. This is Dave Dixon and myself, okay? And we went to the observatory, and one of the reasons we went there is there was a great new speaker that was going to be speaking. He had been a grad student. He got his PhD. He was at Harvard, and he was really big into the possibility of extraterrestrial life. Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan was the speaker. Got to know him. We got to drink with him. We had a great time with him. This was before he moved down to Cornell, where he finished his career, and everybody knows Carl Sagan, what he was. This was the presentation he gave, and I think everybody had an indication that this guy was going to be something special after that presentation. Here we are at the Robert Goddard site in Auburn, Mass. Steve, this is a
golf course.
Golf course now. This is the monument. Once again, the two GQ guys. We both got Minolta SRT 101s for birthday presents. And we had identical cameras, and we made a commitment to ourselves that we would document everything and take pictures everywhere we went, kind of like Jimi Hendrix does now. This actually was
You had to use film.
we had to use film. But this was a very good stepping stone for me, because I spent my entire life in the photo industry, working for CPAC Imaging, for Fuji, and made a really good living and continue to take pictures ever since. The 1970s, every single night, cloudy or not, we were up here, usually sleeping out in this meeting hall, okay, discussing all the important things of the day or observing. We would observe all night long and sleep during the day, walk up to the ice cream place, which is where Famous Pizza is now, to get hot dogs, come back, because we were here for the weekend. We had no way of getting rid of it. So we have Al Hall here, Jim will leave, God drives a flying saucer. We're discussing all that's going on. Neil Paulus, Frank Dubo, Jim Laline, a couple of money grubbers here, Kathy Syak, Neil Paulus, and Steve Syak, counting donations.
Oh my God.
So we were up here every single Saturday, even if it was cloudy, and we would shut the gate. There was a gate back then, so the public couldn't get in here. We wouldn't be disturbed or anything else. And the only person who knew how to get in here, okay, at that time was Mr. John Bacon. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
for this, who remember John Bacon, he would come up and join us. Dave Armitage here, another GQ specialist, okay? You can tell he's really got a fine taste in clothing. Anyway, he came up with all kinds of incredible ideas, and he did a lot towards restoring this observatory. This is during a work session. You see Al Hall here, he's doing some painting. But he bought a Ferrari Dino sports car.
Yeah.
And he didn't do much observing. He did a lot of stuff related to astronomy. But the one thing he did do is some meteor observing. And I can remember him pulling into the right into the courtyard here in this Dino. And he said, we're going to observe from inside the Dino. So he put the top down. We just look up and do meteor observations. But he came up with an idea. He says, why don't we build the largest inflatable planetarium in the world? And I said, yeah, why not? Well, this is the planetarium. This is the admission ticket to get into the planetarium. People who were there can jump in and make some comments here. We basically charge 10 cents to get in to see the show. Okay, we got about 9,000 people went through in the course of a week. Okay, and we made about $10,000 with donations and everything else. But we only ended up making about $1,000 because our expenses were unbelievable. Okay, this was done in 1975, and this shows the inflatable dome inside of the Midland Mall, which is no longer the Midland Mall. But here's what's unique about it. We built this frame, okay, and if we see here, we see Jim Laline, Steve is here, I'm here, Peter Duffy. We built this, and Steve, it was your mom, right?
No, Kathy's mom.
Kathy's mom.
Yes.
She took parachute silk, and she
No, it was
Okay.
cloth. It was cloth that my father got from work. They made awnings, and so it was awning material.
She sewed it into a dome on a cylinder on a sewing machine. Incredible job.
She and
Okay.
my father did it, and at the time, she was quite ill.
Speak up.
She was very ill at the time, and didn't want anyone to know. But sometimes my father sewed it, sometimes they helped each other.
Well, the dome was transparent, the cloth was transparent. At the time, I was teaching scuba diving. So we came up with the idea, let's spray paint the inside of it. So I came up here with scuba gear, and two of us put on scuba equipment, and we went inside this thing and we blew the paint onto it, and we nearly died, okay? But we got it pretty well coated.
Is that what happened to your hair?
What ended up happening later on was it wasn't quite as opaque as we thought, and all the pinholes that showed through, we told people that was the Milky Way. When it was sitting in there, and
The original material was very porous. And so what we needed was to have paint that would allow it to actually blow up. So we put about 4 layers of paint on that material in this inflated condition. And that's why Rick says they had to go inside, because it had to be inflated in order to be able to get a good coat of paint on it.
Every time deflated, little paint chipped up. But every night they used to go fix it.
Over on the left-hand side,
right here,
you see a pipe, quote unquote, which went from 2 great big floor fans and were used to inflate the planetarium. And also you can see the front door there that is being held closed is so that you can keep it inflated.
and when we put the planetarium up, okay, we suspended it from the ceiling, which I think we see here. We suspended it from the ceiling. Goddamn OSHA, if they would have seen this, we would have been dead. But you could see the fan here in the door here. We didn't have enough good snap locks on it. So you'd fill it up and a friggin' door would pop open and start to deflate. So Steve modified it so that the door locked it better, and we had somebody stand guard and everything else. But this was the This was the planetarium.
The-
Wonderful thing. It actually brought a lot of people into skyscrapers.
And one of the problems that we were very concerned about was people standing on the second floor of the mall and jumping onto the dome.
It was a big hangout for kids back then. You went to the mall and there were kids everywhere, and that was a real concern.
The other thing was that, that there were some permanent marks of gray paint on the floor at Midland Mall, which they were never able to remove apparently.
This is the planetarium projector that we got from Brown University on loan. Bob, does this still exist?
Yep, still there.
I do have pictures of the person who designed it, built it and everything else. It actually did a pretty good job. We just didn't have we didn't have the best dome in the world, but if we hoodwinked 9,000 people.
10 cents.
During the 70s, some of the greatest engineering marvels ever designed came out of this building. This is Bob Horton, after shooting out streetlights with BB guns and then going to bulbs that were much more resilient. Bob came up with the idea of this high-tech bulb unscrewer. Okay? And he demonstrated it. And Ed Turkle was trying to figure out how it worked. But it was a fine piece of craftsmanship. Duct tape, eye bolts and string and everything else.
The metal fingers were on hinges, and I would pull a string and it would grip the incandescent streetlight bulb. And I never really got it to unthread, but instead I would snap the bulb at its neck. And the air would rush in, it would flare up like a nova and then go right out. And I would get 2 weeks of dark skies.
Before they replaced it. And there's Betty. Okay, 1977. Do I got the date right?
Yeah.
That's what's on my slides.
So.
This is when we refurbished the telescope and we redid the dome and we did a whole bunch of things. Steve, Walter Dowery, Steve Hubbard, disassembling it. Paul Vallely, who was an optician at iTech up at Lincoln Labs, he came and cleaned the objective and what have you. I said we would only go up to 2,000, but I wanted to talk about, just add that we did another refurbishing in 2001. Hank Renault, Steve, Bobby Horton, Hank Renault. We repainted the tube. The paint didn't hold too well, and we had to redo it. But that was redone. We see Bobby down here. Hank was the fire chief in Woonsocket. He was a very avid amateur astronomer and did a lot here. And this is what the scope looked like in 2001. Steve is going to give a presentation at Astro Assembly on the refurbishing of the dome and the transport, the ring and everything else. But if you take a look here, before we had cannonballs inside of electrical conduit that had been bent into circles, rolling on casters, and they would bunch up and shoot out on the floor, and we'd have to jack up the dome. And Steve, during the Summer Olympics, watching shot put competition, and he says, I got an idea. 5-inch pieces of steel pipe, shot put inside, connected with pipe, with casters, and now the dome works very, very well.
We still have some pieces of the original in the display case in the ante room too. For anybody who wants to see it.
This is our spectroscope that John Briggs was kind of instrumental in us getting it out in operation. This is a Brashear, John?
It's John Browning in
Oh,
London.
John Browning, okay. Okay, it's a John Browning.
Beautiful thing.
And we do have that here.
That's in the case as well, by the way.
We're gonna see an interesting photo coming up. 1976, I didn't want to talk about conventions, but 1976 was kind of unique. We went to the AVSO convention. We're all deeply involved in it and variable star observers. Went to the AVSO convention in Nantucket. Went to Mariah Mitchell Observatory. At the time, John Darrett Hofflight was the director at the time.
Yes.
Yep. Darrett spoke here and stayed at my house. she went, we let her sleep in my waterbed. And she got stuck in the waterbed. And you know, here's a famous professional astronomer in a little tutu in a waterbed. And I hear, Rick, Rick, Rick. And I go, and I thought she was having a stroke or something. She goes, I can't get out of the bed. So I had to go and lift her out so she could go to the bathroom. Anyway, this is the astrograph that they take a lot of the plates to do a lot of the observations of variable stars. She had students there every summer, Steve and Kathy, at that convention, and
John, what the hell happened?
I appreciate you thinking me, but that's not me.
the first male student amongst all those female promising astronomers.
That's on me. And it was 70,
That's you.
it was 77.
That's you.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, trust me.
I'm messing with you.
He was given the first.
But only, what kind of jackass would wear a tie like that?
It was the 70s.
My God.
I thought you looked pretty dapper there.
Yeah, well,
What did all those girls, that harem of girls, have to think about it? Being the first male there.
well, I could tell some stories, but I have to watch out what I say about, because I was a student assistant there the summer of 77, and then the AVSO met there in October of 77. And but when I returned for the AVSO meeting, and so I'm actually trying to get through the first time I ever gave a science talk at that it was in the Coppin School building on Nantucket. But I had a girl accompany me on the trip out to Nantucket, and that was Elizabeth, who is now my wife and mother of my children. So she would be highly amused to get a copy of that.
I'll email it to you.
Yeah.
Margaret Mayo was the director of the AVSO from its founding. Okay, but Janet Matty, who became Janet Ukes Matty, who married Mike Matty, she got her PhD from the University of Ankara in Turkey. And she came to this country and applied for the position. They were looking to, Margaret Mayo was looking to retire, and she became the director of the AVSO. Wonderful member, came to Seagrave all the time. This is Dr. Bill Lilla, who he moved down to the Southern Hemisphere, right, John?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this was taken during the meeting, but I want to show. Janet died far too young, okay, but she was a really good friend of Skyscrapers. Here's Dave Eustace, okay, and here is
Steve O'Meara.
Steve O'Meara. So you can tell that was a long time ago. Here's Dickie Broder having a discussion with Scotty Houston during the meeting.
Scotty's picture is on the wall here, everybody.
During a Stellafane, we went, not the first Stellafane we went to, the first time we got to go to the Harkness Turret Telescope at the Harkness House. And Dave Dixon, Dave Eustace, Arlene, Dave's first girlfriend before Tina came along, myself, Peter Duffy, Ed Turco, Brian McGaw, and John, say a couple of words on this.
Wow.
10-inch.
It's the 10-inch for sheer lens there at the Harkness turret, and I think it was Jim Daly, a member of Stellafane, optical engineer. He had an awful lot to do with refurbishing this telescope sometime in the 1970s. And I think we're looking at it there with the stainless steel tube that replaced whatever had been earlier, but it was really rotting out. And unfortunately, what came to pass was the amazing underground complex underneath this turret telescope. Of course, it became a museum space for the Stellafane Club. But if folks aren't familiar, the Stellafane Club has become nervous about continuing to have the museum up there underneath this thing, because the ownership of the associated hotel has changed, and there's never been a formal agreement. So the Museum of Amateur Telescope Making is in the process right now of relocating to a building in Springfield, Vermont. And unfortunately, the turret telescope seen here is in dire need of refurbishment again now. But now the issue has more to do with the masonry underneath the metal parts than the metal parts themselves. And apparently the owners of the Hartness House Hotel, who I understand, at least they are Americans now, they don't seem to care too much. They don't have a real high priority on the preservation of this telescope, but at least according to stuff I've heard. But let's just hope that somehow this really historic, amazing instrument will see ongoing refurbishment.
John, would you say that's roughly 80 years old at this point?
Man, I'm trying to remember when Hartness, the
1910.
original owner, published papers. I think they were circa 1915. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
I think this thing came online circa 1915.
Well over 100.
This is based on Russell Porter's Springfield design, where he has a fixed eyepiece. Actually, the observers are inside of this, and there's a fixed eyepiece here. And this rotates and this elevates. Okay, so you stay at a fixed eyepiece in a heated environment while the telescope moves around it.
And there's a similar instrument right on the hill at Stellafane, although it's not identical to this.
Yeah, and the thing is, thank you, Rick, for explaining the important fundamentals of what we're looking at there. It's amazing. You go inside the observatory, and the telescope is outdoors. You stay relatively warm. But this guy William Hartness, who had this as his backyard instrument, he was the governor of Vermont. This instrument was earlier than Porter, so in a lot of ways, it was Hartness and Hartness's vision for this type of stuff that stimulated Porter, and Hartness recognized Porter's genius, and so he hired him. And so of all the historic things up at Stellafane, this thing is really fundamental. So it's regrettable that it's kind of on thin ice right now, but we'll see what
I
happens.
know, John, I didn't realize this was before Russell
Yeah.
Porter.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is really, really important.
Yeah, the Porter scope is dated 1930, but I'm pretty darn sure this thing goes back closer to World War I.
Okay. Okay, 1980s, 1990s. Steve, Kathy, myself, Dave Hustis, we came up with an idea that we would have a conference on cometary astronomy. We were really involved in observing comets, and we decided we were going to start. We talked to Joe Marcus and Dan Green and Charles Morris about the possibility of getting an international conference on cometary astronomy, and we're going to host it at Bryant College. We made contact. It didn't work out too good. They flushed around the dates and everything else. Dan Green and Joe Marcus said to me, you know, with all due respect, Bryant College is not the center of the universe, and people flying in from other parts of the country, they're going to come into Boston or maybe Providence. So maybe we should have it somewhere closer. So we ended up having it at Harvard, and it was the first conference on cometary astronomy. We invited a lot of people from a lot of different places, had no money to offer them, but they came in great numbers. And if we take a look here, here I am, here is Mike Matty, okay? This is Jose Campos. I'll tell you about him after, okay? If we go along here, Steve Syak, Charlie Morris, Brian Marsden, Dan Green, John Bortle, Bobby Napier,
You still on it?
Stephen Edberg. We look around the back here, we see Brian, Dave Hustis. There are some others, Fred Whipple,
John Briggs.
John Briggs.
No, I don't even remember being there, man.
Yeah, well,
I'm next to John.
Looks like.
Bill Penhollow,
Hey, you missed me. I'm next.
Dave, Steve is right there.
I've taken a picture.
Anyway, took the picture in front of it, later on. This is Kathy, Steve, Dave, Frank Dubo, and my wife. We took it in front of the observatory there.
Oh, by the way, that first building that we were all in front of, that building is gone.
Yeah, that was in the parking lot.
Yeah, that was torn down, I think around 2010.
Okay, Jose Campos discovered a comet just 2 years earlier. He's from South Africa, Durban, South Africa. I invite him to come. He ends up staying with me the whole time. Every morning, they must eat different food down there because every morning my wife says, well, what are we gonna make here? You know, he liked bacon. We made bacon, eggs, toast, and all that stuff. It was good. He come down. I told him I couldn't take the whole week off. I was working in Boston at the time, but I said I could take you into Boston. There's a lot of great museums. I could drop you off and everything else. And I made an off-the-cuff remark. You know, I can even take you. I drop you off in the combat zone in China now. For those who don't know what the combat zone is, that's the adult entertainment section. Well, he told me, oh, that'd be kind of cool. Okay, because in South Africa, if you get caught with a Playboy magazine, you go to jail. They were really, really strict back then. Okay, make a long story short, I take him one day, I drop him off in Chinatown, adjacent to the combat zone. I said, look for the Naked Eye Cabaret. Okay, I tell him, you go in there and they got these big glass tanks with naked women on the other side, pressing up against the glass, and you can sit in front of the tables. He doesn't find it. He walks into a gay nightclub and ends up being stuck in there the whole day with a bunch of gay men, with gay strippers and everything else. He was too scared to go to the bathroom or to leave the building. Eventually, he got out and he came up to me. Oh, I said, "Hey, did you have a good time?" He says, "Well, no, not really." Okay. Next morning, we're sitting down for breakfast, and my wife's going to make him pancakes, bacon, or sausage or something else. And he goes, "Oh yeah, yeah." I don't know what he called it, flapjacks or something. Says, yeah. It says, yeah, we put powdered sugar on it. I says, well, we got something better. And he goes, what's that? I says, we have maple syrup. He goes, what's maple syrup? I says, well, at a certain time in the springtime, we go up to maple trees and we bang a hole into them and they pee out all this liquid.
Oh, no.
Okay. And then we boil it up and put it in a container and you pour it on your pancakes. He goes, really? He tried it. He loved it. Okay, he absolutely loved it, but he thought the concept was really strange. And I'm taking a quart bottle home with him to South Africa. I don't know if he got through customs. 1984, some skyscrapers. We did a trip out to Amherst College Observatory. John, scope's still in there?
Yeah, the 18-inch is refractor still the big white dome, but sadly the smaller dome, there was a fire, and they had already taken out the smaller refractor that was originally in that smaller dome. It was like about a 7 1/4 inch or 7 1/2 inch.
Was it a Fitz?
No, it was actually a really, really early Alvin Clark.
Okay.
So it was sort of sad. It had been remounted in the early 20th century, but the story was in the 1970s, some graduate students from like UMass were trying to use that small refractor to look at a lunar eclipse, and the lens cap was really tight, according to the story I heard, and so they knew they had to use a screwdriver somehow for a little bit of leverage to pop off a lens cap, but they only understood it vaguely. But apparently they used a screwdriver and they started undoing the screws that held the lens cell out of the tube. And then they managed, in trying to observe this total lunar eclipse, of dropping the lens cell on the floor, and it destroyed this varies, like from the 1850s, this lens, and so that was what happened to that telescope. But they replaced it with a 10-inch Starliner Cassegrain, and that, of course, just, you know, invoked astronomy gods to ultimately like let the dome burn. So
This is Steve Hubbard at the eyepiece of the 18-inch.
It is. Wow.
I gotta tell you, you see the shirt that Steve's got on?
Oh, Jesus.
Dan Lorraine, myself, and Steve, we were kind of involved in historical research, archaeological research. We used to go out most Saturdays all over New England, upstate New York, to go look at stone chambers, underground tunnels, mysterious places and everything else. And we all had our favorite clothes that we wore. This was Steve's shirt, which he used for astronomy too. Dan and I had flannel shirts, and we took pictures everywhere in every damn state. And we given a talk once on these mysterious stone sites, and a lady goes, "Oh, you know, I noticed you were in Maine, and then you were in Connecticut, and New York, and last year you were in Vermont, and you all have the same clothes on." And it was a joke because it was our favorite thing to do. But Scotty Houston had told me he was going to build a new observatory and he needed a little help with the foundation. So what happened was we said, look, we'll put together a Skyscraper SWAT team and we'll go down and we'll help you with the foundation. So we have Scotty, we have Bob Napier, John Huff, Brian McGaw, and myself. And we went and we spent some time down there a weekend, and we helped him lay his foundation for his observatory. And here we see after the foundation, we pretty much put it in place. He felt he could do the rest of it on his own. And him and Mrs. Houston served us a nice lunch. We see Brian and Bob here, and we had a really, really good time. He was very appreciative of that, and we became close friends. He's been at the observatory on a number of occasions here, spoken to us, what have you. In 1985, we were getting ready for the return of Halley's Comet, and at one of the meetings we had what was called the Two-Timers meeting, where we Dave Eustace and I don't know who else tracked down, after some announcement, gentlemen, a couple of people that had seen Halley in 1910 when they were young children and remembered it vividly. And this was one of them. I can't remember his name. And he came and he talked about his recollections from way back then. And we had star parties here during Halley's Comet, and every square foot of the grounds was just covered with people and telescopes and everything else. And this is a picture I took from out back of Halley's Comet.
I gotta say something about that.
When the skies were really nice here.
When, I don't know if you've all noticed the plaque down at the street. That describes what this building is and what this place is, what this organization is. But the biggest thing that ever happened in the town of Situate was the appearance of Halley's Comet in 1986. And that's prominently discussed on that plaque. So whenever you get a chance to look at that plaque, please do so.
Nice.
Thousands of people came. They had to close down 101, Route 6. There was parking everywhere. The lines went on forever. We kind of got cited by the police, not in a bad way, but hey, you can't do this. You shut down the damn town and everything else. But people got in line, and there's no way they were going to ever see the comet it set before they got halfway through the line. Okay, 1986, Woody Spring, shuttle astronaut, came and spoke here. I knew Woody. I think Steve, probably Dan, Bob Horton. He lived in Harmony, Rhode Island, which is just the next town up in Chepachet. And he would come on Saturday nights to look through the telescope. He was never a member of Skyscrapers, but you know, he came and he said, I'm going to be an astronomer someday and everything else. Well, his path went a different way. He became an astronaut and everything else. But we invited him to come and speak here. After he had done his missions and he had returned home, he now lives in Houston. But he came and he gave a presentation, which was incredibly well attended. This is Woody, my wife, and my daughter Kimberly, and my daughter Becky. She's now 50 and she's 42, and I have grandchildren. So you can tell how long ago this was.
I met Woody at Cape Kennedy again this spring.
Really?
Yeah, he actually lives down there and he gives presentations on a regular basis. He's 86.
Oh,
Wow.
No.
For everybody that doesn't know, again, on the wall, there are two pictures
I
of
think it's
Woody
down here.
from when he came and gave a talk to us.
And a patch that flew on a mission, right?
Yeah.
It was after the mission.
He only had one mission because
Yeah.
right after he flew, Challenger. Yeah.
This is Dave presenting him with an honorary membership, okay, he was very happy to receive. And this is Dave showing him the telescope that he had looked through in his earlier high school days and everything else, when he knew space and astronomy was something he was interested in. And this is him outside, and this is a gentleman who had sat in the. I included that. Listen, you notice most of the people who were members here, they knew if you're gonna sit in them seats, don't lean back. And if you're gonna sit in folding chairs or what have you, but this is what would happen
Yeah.
when you sat in the seat over and over again. Seats never faded, they just kept transferring.
It's like the glasses.
That's what like, yes, it has.
In 1986 at Astro Assembly, we had an incredibly great Astro Assembly. We had a lot of keynote speakers. This is Chet Ramo, astronomer at Stonehill College. He's written many books, 365 Starry Nights. Dan Lorraine, right there, slim Dan Lorraine, no gray in his hair. And I forgot this gentleman's name. He was a longtime member, Steve.
Oh, Renee.
Oh, yeah, Renee. Yeah, Renee
Yeah.
Bellamy. He lived up behind the IGA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's Walter Smith, I think.
Yeah,
It is.
Walter Smith. Chet lives in Dublin now. He's still active in astronomy from the standpoint that at Armagh Observatory and Planetarium, he lectures there on occasion. Here's Dan with Evan Hattingham, the science editor for WGBH Nova. He's written many books and he was a speaker here. Here's Roger Forsyth, okay? And he's got his book, Earth, Moon, and Planets, and he brought it to have it autographed, okay? And you'll see who was gonna autograph it. Mike Matty, who was the telescope operator at the 62-inch up at Oak Ridge Agassiz Station. Dan, Dave, and a young Dr. Peter Schultz.
Yeah.
Okay, this is 1986. Our speaker for the evening was Dr. Fred Whipple. When we hosted a Nero convention at Bryan 10 years earlier, we got him as a speaker also, but I'm talking to Steve Syak and I'm saying, hey, gotta get a keynote speaker. And we're going through names and I said, hey, Steve, is Fred Whipple still alive, the famous cometary astronomer? He goes, I don't know. Okay, we ended up getting him as a speaker. And when he came to Astro Assembly in 1986, his presentation was exactly 40 years to the day when, as a grad student, he spoke at a Skyscraper meeting at Brown.
Wow.
Okay. I became very good friends with Fred Whipple. Dan and myself, we went to his house. He gave us a lot of things. He invited me to go with him as his bagman when he went, they dedicated the MMT to the Fred Lawrence Whipple Observatory. We went to Patriots games together, got Christmas cards. He sent me sheets of postage stamps from Mauritania of pictures of him and the comet and everything else, all kinds of collectibles. But he says, I get kind of tired late in the afternoon. I got to take a nap. So I said, well, I don't live down the street. So why don't you come down and take a nap at the house? So he said, well, I'll just take a nap in a recliner chair. So my cat fell in love with my cat, fell asleep, took a nap there, that's fine. Okay, but it's kind of nice to say, had Fred Whipple at the house. 1987, Dave Levy, after Mike Matty and I had visited in 86, we went to his John Ack Observatory. He said, hey, you know, Dr. Clyde Tombaugh is going to be on a lecture tour to try and raise money for his scholarship program. He says, you guys might want to consider bringing him to the East Coast. So I talked to Steve Caffey, Dan, Bob Napier. We all decided that we're going to try and get Fred Whipple to come. We managed to finance to get him here and everything else. And we took him on a whirlwind tour. We see this is at the Planetary Data Centers. We see Dr. Peter Schultz, Dave Levy, Dr. Tombaugh, Dr. Head, Patsy Tombaugh here. And they're just going over things, and he's reminiscing about the discovery of Pluto and everything else. This is a great photo. This is the configuration of the planets in our solar system this month. So Dr. Schultz is showing Tombaugh where Pluto is in conjunction, in relation to all the other planets. He wanted to go to see Jim Head's office. I told him he had one of the largest collections of beer bottles and beer cans from all over the world. Okay, and he said, oh, that sounds good to me. Okay, so we see Dr. Head, we see Dr. Tombaugh, Dave, and we see the collections. And he's got an autographed poster of Lenin. I don't know how the hell he pulled that off. I mean, I think he threw some bait at me, and I took it hook, line, and sinker because he wasn't alive when Lenin was going. But anyway.
Was it John Lennon?
No. But Jim Head spent a lot of time in Russia because the Venus, they were experts on the planet Venus. Raoul Zagdeev and the Russian Academy of Sciences would come to Brown, and they would go there and everything else. So there was a relationship there. Bobby Horton, Pat Morrissey. Bob, you remember who that is? Bob Horton, do you remember who that is?
No.
They're at Ladd Observatory, Brian, Dave, and everything else. Everybody who sees Ladd's telescope, not that they haven't seen bigger ones, they're always impressed with the condition of the place and the condition of the telescope. They were very impressed. We were going to have a presentation at UMass Dartmouth, and on the way there, Jerry said, hey, can we stop at my observatory? I said, sure. So Jerry, Helga Dyke, Mr. and Mrs. Tombaugh, Alan Hirschfeld, and Brian McGaw, we stopped. Clyde thought this observatory was killer. Okay, I went and visited Clyde in Las Cruces at his house, and he had his big damn telescope up on a tower, and he had all kinds of things in his yard, but he was really impressed with this. For those who don't know, the telescope is stationary, but you got wheels, turns the observatory with the telescope in it around, and Jerry was an incredible variable star observer. Okay, this is.
Do you have that telescope?
Who?
Yeah, Helga, Jerry's widow, turned his 17.5 inch over to me. So I've got the instrument out in New Mexico, but that observatory shown there, Helga would dearly like somebody to save this observatory, and it's in
Dartmouth.
Yeah, it might be near Dartmouth. It might be Dighton now or something like that, because he relocated. And it would be a job to move it, but it really was a nice observatory. And somebody determined, I think, could get it out of there. You need an all-terrain forklift probably to lift it out in the backyard, but like Clyde Tombaugh said, it was a very, very cool observatory.
Okay, there's a great story here. This is Dave and Clyde and his wife at my house. And my daughter knew of my interest in astronomy. Becky, she was very young at the time. She's in the 3rd grade, and she's telling all the kids in the neighborhood, hey, the man who discovered Pluto is at my house. And the kids going, yeah, well, crap. So she would bring them all over, and he was the nicest man. Oh, so nice to see you. I'm a plutocrat, you know. And anyway, she went to school the next day, and she's telling her teacher, Dr. Hazard, who taught, you know, third grade, they teach science, they teach everything in one class. And says, Dr. Hazard, my father, we have at our house, Dr. Tambo, who is the discoverer of the planet Pluto. Sure, Becky, sure. Says, no, really, really. One of the other kids goes, no, I was there, I saw him, he's a little man. Okay. So anyway, she's a little disappointed. That's the end of the story, okay? She comes home and she's telling us, and Dr. Tombaugh says, hey, why don't we go visit him tomorrow? And I said, what a great idea. So to make a long story short, Becky didn't know this was gonna happen. Dave, Clyde, his wife, we went over just around the street to school, went inside, went to the principal's office and says, hi, I'm Richard Lynch, I'm Becky's father, and I was wondering if we could see Dr. Hazard. We have somebody who would very much like to meet him here, and I don't recall if they had heard the story, but, and I said, this is Dr. Clyde Tombaugh. He's discovered the discoverer of the planet Pluto in 1930. Oh my God. Okay. And I says, this Dave Levy, he's a noted comet hunter. He's discovered 2 comets. Oh my goodness. So she says, hold on. She says, okay, follow me. So we walk down the corridor, walks up to the door, classroom's closed, opens the door. Dr. Hazard, Mr. Hazard, you have visitors here. Okay. And he looks and goes, what? Okay. And we marched in and he looks and he goes, oh my God, it's true. Okay. This is Dr. Clyde Tombaugh and everything else. He was blown away. He says, I didn't believe you, Becky. I'm very sorry. And he came to Astro Assembly on the Saturday. And you got a signed thing from him. Okay. In the Ellen Hall petitioned the Treasury Department in the early 1990s that they might want to reconsider issuing money, okay, with some faces. And it was flatly denied. Okay, here we see Al Hall on the $1 bill. We see Dan Lorraine on the $2 bill. We see Ed Turco on the $5 bill. We see Steve Hubbard on the $10 bill. Rick Lynch on the $20 bill. This man looks like he belongs on the dollar. We see Steve Syak on the $50 bill. And then the big money brothers, the big guys. We got Bob Horton on the 100, Scott Tracy on the 500, and we got Dave on the 1,000. Some of this money has been issued locally, but you'll never see it wide circulated.
I still have it in my.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, I know what that is.
this is the Schwarzschild camera that was built by Skyscrapers and Dr. Smiley for eclipse photography and everything else. To make a long story short, Pat Morrissey, who was then a student at Brown, took it on as a project to get this going, and after a lot of work, didn't really get the results he was looking for, but he got Brown to donate some money, I think maybe $500, to build the second part, to offset the cost of the second part of the roll-off roof observatory, where we installed the Schwarzschild. We never really got it going. Bob Howe, Chet Syak, Steve's dad, I forgot.
Don Murphy.
Don Murphy, Steve, and Dave, and it never really got going. Pat never got it going. Pat ended up becoming a professional astronomer. Dan, and where was he? He's out in California.
JPL.
He's at JPL. But what happened was Brown at the time thought they might relocate this and put it up on Jeremeth Hill, which they own in Forster. But that never materialized. So so Bill Penhollow, longtime member, and really a mentor for the junior members, he said, listen, I'm gonna take it down to URI, I'm gonna set it up behind my home and I'm gonna get it going. Needless to say, I don't think he ever got it going. I was just talking to Bob tonight, we don't know where the telescope is, but if you remember when I showed you the Crawford dome that was here, that Reverend Crawford had wanted to relocate a 16-inch. That didn't fit. That ended up going down to Conchagachaga Observatory. And that was installed down at URI, and that's what Bill Penhollow used for many years. And he wanted to get this going because he was doing astrometry of asteroids, but it never really got going. We don't know where it is.
Ricky, what did you say about, what, Chaga?
Yeah, I don't know.
Quantica tag.
Quantica.
Yeah.
Is that the trench for the electrical?
Is that the what?
The trench for the electrical?
Rick,
Yes,
Rick,
yes.
that short shield, before it was brought, here to be tested out.
Yeah.
It was actually in my observatory. Pat Morrissey and I put it together in my observatory. And I used the mount, but I had a 16-inch Newtonian on.
I remember that.
I took it down and we put it up there, and we actually did take some images through that scope.
Really? Because I
Yeah.
was under the assumption that Pat, when it was here, never got it to work.
Well, we did. Maybe it was just after, I'm not sure. But we had to make a 6x9 film holder to put, the focal plane was between the primary mirror and the secondary mirror in the middle. And it faced toward the sky, which was a problem with ambient light fogging the film.
Yep.
So, but we did successfully get some images through that in my observatory.
Do you
I
still
don't
have the
know.
images?
Yeah. Hmm?
Do you have the images?
I don't know if I still do or not.
That'd be
I
great to see them.
recall seeing the envelopes a few years ago, but I don't know if I still have them. But we did get images on that in my observatory.
Okay, real close. Okay, thank you, Bob. I just, the noose was out to get me. The observatory, we took it out. We decided we had to repurpose that side of the observatory. At the time, we had a 14-inch Dobsonian, which Dan and I used to use a lot, but man, that was a struggle. That something was so heavy. But we managed to put it in there and we used it in that observatory for a while, and eventually we got rid of that. Okay, we have the patent in there now. And I think at some point the patent should come out and something else should go in there and the patent should be on display or something, because it's getting no use and it just accumulates junk in there.
For everybody to know, the patent is a very usable Newtonian telescope. However, in order to get to the eyepiece, you have to climb up a 10-foot step ladder. And to use that with the public is extremely dangerous, in my opinion. So we do not use that.
Yeah. We lost a very, very close friend at 36 years old. Brian McGaw passed away in 1994. Dan commissioned with a well-known space artist to do this rendering of Brian, who loved astronomy, space, and what have you. But we all miss Brian, and you saw him in a lot of the earlier photos. 1997, I made arrangements to go to the VLA to do some meteor observing. We were looking forward to see what was going to happen for the Leonids. We see Bob Napier, Linda Bergman, Stephen Cathy. I can't tell who this is. Okay, Peter Duff. Yeah. No, it wasn't Peter. He never tried. Anyway, we stopped at a roadside picnic and we went to the VLA. I found out that the public information officer, who was responsible for letting the public and telling about the VLA, had only been dedicated a few years earlier, okay, was from Middletown, Rhode Island, okay? So I made contact with him and I said, we would like to come out. Would it be possible to observe the Leonids from the VLA, from the grounds of the VLA? He says, let me see what I can do. He made arrangements. We ended up using the auditorium to sleep in. Okay, we had the place wide open to us. We got to observe in the shadow of one of the 80-foot dishes, and it was a flop. There were no Leonids to speak of that. But this is the sign when things were really primitive. Remember, it had only been dedicated a few years earlier, and all the dishes were in place. But this was in 1997. And this is Venus, one of the 82-foot dishes, and this, my wife, I think this is Steve and Kathy, Linda, I can't remember the lineup, but it was quite a sight to be there on the most unbelievable skies and not see any meteors. This is what it looked like, just a 20-second exposure, what have you. Okay, and we're gonna end in 1998 with the Leonids. I had been doing a lot of archaeology and astronomy in the Southwest, primarily in New Mexico, Arizona, and I ended up buying some land there. Okay, I was gonna build an observatory there, and I was gonna put a house on it. That never came to pass. I ended up with a townhouse in Albuquerque. Make a long story short, 1998, we put together a trip to see the Leonids from my land at 6,000 feet in the high desert. And it was just outside of Grants, New Mexico. And I can remember driving from Grants, we were staying at the Motel 6 or something, and we were driving out to my land, and Bobby Horton sitting with me in the front seat, and friggin' fireballs are just coming out of the sky early in the evening through the windshield. And he goes, whoa, it's gonna be a hell of a night. This was a picture Bob took of a -9 fireball, actually just before sunrise. We see the Big Dipper here, okay? And this is the smoke train that lasted quite a while after that. But this was my land. I bought 20 acres, then I bought another 20 acres adjacent to it, okay? I never got to build a house. I traded with some Sunni Indian friends and got this small camper, okay, infested with hantavirus mice, but I cleaned it all up. It was a great place. It was our base of operations. Wild horses everywhere, wildlife everywhere, okay? And this was my humble abode. I would come out here on a very regular basis because I was working with the Zuni archaeological program. And I had a Pueblo right down here, Pueblo ruins in Aha, Pueblo, 1,100 room Pueblo right on the land. Anyway, this is what the base of operations for our observing. And this is myself. This is Dave Targan, Al Hall. These are students from Brown. He brought students from Brown. This is, think about that for a minute. Kathy, Steve, Linda, my wife, Bob Horton, Bob Napier, Bruce McDermott. We went out here and we had one hell of a night. Wow.
I want to say that we were traveling on this little dirt path into his land, and he said, oh, this is where the hantavirus was found. And so you do it.
Ground zero.
You get it by inhaling the dust, you know. So I was trying to hold my breath. It's like, oh, don't let me breathe.
You get it from most urine that lands on the dust and gets inhaled. People are dying. When it first broke out, my wife, I came back from a trip and she says, you're not living here. You're somewhere else. But now you're not going to kill the family. And then shortly thereafter, I brought her out to the land for the first time. And I opened up the place. I tried to mouse-proof it as best I could. I opened up the place to show it to her. And she says, to be blunt, she goes, this place is a piece of shit. Anyway, opened up the door inside and we look around. I opened up the mattress. I turned the mattress over. It's brown with water,
Oh,
baby mice living in there and everything else. And she goes, "We're out of here." But, Bob, what would you say the hourly rate was close to sunrise?
We came up with over 500.
At least 1 second. Okay, it was unbelievable. Okay, and the sky was so bright, the sky was bright with the Sky-Light, the Gegenschein, and they were falling like rain. It was just unbelievable. And then the next year, we observed from Frosty Drew down in Charleston, and we had an equally good night. But it was an incredible, incredible experience. With the end of the 1990 Skyscraper Nostalgia 1 ends with the beginning of a new century. Skyscraper Nostalgia 2 to come in the future for the year 2000 to the present.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Is there anybody here who had any interaction with Charles Smiley? Besides myself?
I have original letters when I wrote to him.
I went to the first skyscraper. Meeting maybe, in 1957 at Mount Observatory. Charles Smiley was presenting the latest information about Sputnik.
I was at that meeting.
Oh, wow.
No, I was at a later meeting. What year did you say?
1957. This is, Sputnik was,
59.
no,
oh,
57.
57. And this is like December, like 2 months after Sputnik launched. And he gave a presentation. I think it was mostly skyscrapers. Now, I was a freshman, Rogers High School, at that time. I couldn't drive. My mother somehow knew about this open meeting. She drove me up here, and I think that was my first contact with John Hawk. And he got me into mirror making. I made my first mirror within a year or so after that. But Smiley in 1957, I still have somewhere a star chart where he actually drew in a pencil the paths of Sputnik through the star field. So
I have original letters that I wrote to him telling him I'd like to come to the observatory to see a Cassegrain. And he said, well, you can't see it from here. You gotta kind of get down to the ocean. But I corresponded with him for a while. He always wrote back, it was very encouraging. Yes,
That's
John.
cool. The experience I had was that when I was like in elementary school or something, my father noticed an announcement in the newspaper that Charles Smiley was giving a talk at Brown about Mayan arithmetic. Is it Mayan or Mayan? Mayan, thank you. It was a specialty of his, and my father and I went, and I heard this guy give a talk, but it was before, I knew it was an astronomer, but it was before I learned about skyscrapers and stuff. But I was just curious if.
He was an expert on the Mayan calendar.
Yeah, but I heard this guy give this talk that I never forgot, at least the basics. And it was very nice. I'm proud to have heard him. The only other quick comment I wanted to say, you mentioned Dick Broder and
Dennis Howard.
Dennis Howard a couple times. They were key members of the Great
Great
New
Bedford
Bedford Astronomical Society. And I just want to acknowledge that those guys, they ran the junior club over there, and they were incredibly important people to me. It's, helping me as a little kid astronomer. And so I think of them often. Dennis Howard is still alive as far as I know, but Dick Broder passed away.
Yeah, passed away. John, does Bogsucker Observatory building still exist?
No, unfortunately, although it was a pretty stout looking thing. It leaked, and the structure rotted, and it eventually, the telescope was removed, but the observatory eventually blew over. Would you believe it? So it's on the property I'm trying to sell right now. So.
You had that constructed from wood that you bought from the sawmill, right?
Yeah, it was green, yeah, it was impressive looking, but there were mistakes in how I did it, but. It was green lumber and I had a lot of fun with it. It served its purpose, but I had to move away and do other things. And I wasn't around to take care of it. And, but that's a whole other story, but I had fun and it really did serve a purpose for me.
Tell your wife I'm gonna send her a bunch of pictures. I got more pictures.
We'd have great fun, but thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Sorry,